Hello, Csaba. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Thank you. So we are here today to chat a little bit about closure. Not closure when you go through a big heartbreak or something, but closure in wine, I think.
Yeah, closure in wine. This is a very interesting topic because over the last 20-25 years, around basically the millennium, the sort of invention of the screw cap as such has really kind of changed dramatically what quality in wine in general. But when I say quality, it's not just the fact that it really pushed the quality back into the cork because of the demand, and I will elaborate on that in a minute. But more importantly, I think it created a sort of layers, at least for customer mind, of what is a super fine wine and what is almost like a daily wine. So let me catch back on the cork aspect. So as you know, I've been in the trade for quite a few decades now, and early on in the
doesn't look good, by the way. Sorry,
I beg your pardon.
You doesn't look like.
And in the early 90s, the average thought in terms of TCA print. So TCA is the trichloroanisole, which is basically the cork flavor that you get out of cork closure, represent roughly about 10% of your cellar. So you imagine you've got, £100,000 worth of wines. It's £10,000 that you're going to have to either claim from the producer or from importers, or just simply put in the drain. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of stock. But more importantly, I think it's also the heartbreaking situation when you've had that beautiful bottle of wine that you've expected and waited for that occasion, for that great moment, and then you pull it out and you're like, oh my goodness, this is cold. So that's obviously was part of the game, but obviously created a lot of tension, and especially when you work in restaurants, going bottle for bottle for bottle for bottle for bottles as cooked was obviously quite difficult to follow up, and also costly. So at the end, so in the 2000s, so Vinolok, not Vinolok, but Screw Cap, which is actually a real brand, created this new closure, and obviously the big marketing aspect of it was New Zealand, as they decided to kind of go through the entire process. Again, when you think about cork, you have to the way I put it is, doesn't make sense, but it makes sense to me. It's 1.1 country. When I say 1.1 country, it's because it's Portugal that lead the production almost at 100%, and then there's a little bit in Spain, there's a little bit in Morocco, and that's basically it. So the production of cork is really concentrated around one country. And before I carry on, I just spoken to Monsieur Gigal 2 days ago. He was in London, and he was saying that Portugal lately, because of dryness, country weather pattern that has been quite dramatic in Portugal, so the growth of cork has been very minimum. So again, a natural product that is also suffering from the climate change.
They needed some sort of not a replacement, but some additional options.
Precisely, because again, the cork was sort of monopoly. It was understood that it was the best product, as it's a natural product, it's an organic product, it leaves the wines the potential to breathe. I mean, a cork, according to its size, it's between 35 cents to about €1, sometimes even €2. So when you think about a wine at €5, that's a lot of money. Of course, if you buy Petrus or Romanée Conti of this world, €2, compared to a bottle at £3,000, it's peanuts. But still, so most of the European countries, again, back in the time, were having the best cork available, because it's always, prestigious to deliver your cork at Mouton Rothschild, at Petrus, and at Romanée Conti. But then everything that the basically European market didn't want went to the US. What the American didn't want went to South America. What South America didn't want went to South Africa, and so on and so forth. So imagine the last in the trade fell basically as New Zealand was. They really got the bad of the bad of the bad of the bad. So eventually the move with screw cap was actually was very diligent in the term that they didn't have much choices. And also they used that as a marketing tool and blah, 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 which worked with very, very, very well for them. They still retain a little bit of Cork. But the point I want to make is that that creation, that invention really rebalanced. Because again, in the 90s, you have to think that, you know, South America exploded, South Africa exploded in terms of production, and then you got Lebanon, the original countries that still, you know, went back to do massive production, you know, Bulgaria, Romania. You think about, you know, South Africa, but you think about India, you think about Thailand, you think about Australia and New Zealand also exploded. So the demand, the pressure on those guys in Portugal was huge. And they just, you know, they just, as everything, when you overproduce, you lower the quality. So that's basically a cause and effect that you can't escape. So the screw cap was invented, and that created that layers. So now, you know, it's very, very current to drink something from anywhere in the world that is under screw cap. That doesn't mean that
I was going to ask something about that, because when I went through my small tiny cellar at home, I'm really depleted at the moment, so I don't really have too much wine at the moment, but I still have a fair amount. And I went through it, and specifically for this chat, I wanted to find one with screw cap, and not because I'm a wine snob, but I actually, because I'm not, I actually sometimes I prefer the screw cap to a cork, but I didn't find a screw cap bottle of wine in my cellar. Everything in there was with cork. But as you said, there's a lot of countries, so you go everywhere now, and then you find stuff in both formats, I would say. There's one place which I can't still, obviously it's not true, but Bordeaux. I like to pick on Bordeaux a little bit, because they tend to put everything on the cork, but even Bordeaux started to come out with screw cap versions, and not just on a cheap level. They have some interesting bits with screw cap rather than cork, which previously wasn't really a thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there's few wineries that I moved to screw cap years ago. I'm thinking about Penfolds. I've been under screw cap, even though they don't put it on the market, but they've basically been aging some of their top wines discreetly under the cellar to see the evolution and the quality of the changes, because the organic aspect of cork has a tendency to absorb some of the primary character, whereas the cork doesn't. So you got, because it's much less exchange, obviously it's completely locked, and that's the idea. You don't want a wine oxidating, but of course there is a change, which is there's not much evolution. So will a wine, even with 15 or 20 years of evolution in time, will have an effect via the screw cap? Nobody really knows. It's still a very young prospect, even though now it's about 20 years of experience. We don't really know, you know. Drinking very old wine out of cork, you know, gives you that perspective, you know, the port of this world, the really old Bordeaux or Burgundy or whatever. So it's still very much in kind of thinking and engineering process, if you see what I mean, because we don't have the experience enough as yet. But more importantly, I think what is the view of the screw cap as a consumer. You think that exactly, and they also, as a winemaker, they're seeing that the screw cap is something that, because of that perspective in time that we don't really have, and wine, and because that freshness is actually produced and capped with screw cap as such, as a much fresher, as much easier, and a much earlier drinking wine. So even in terms of the demography of the wine as such, the layering as such, it's usually the entry level plus that will be locked and capped and closed with screw cap. So it gives you that perspective that it's not cheap, because it's not cheap. I mean, a screw cap is up to about €1, so it's actually quite a lot of money when you think about it, because it's really good quality. Even though a screw cap, even though it doesn't have any issue when it comes to TCA tent and whatever, it's actually quite fragile. If you tap it, if you knock it, it can sometimes break the closure. Yeah. Then the wine will actually spoil or even simply spill. So it has also its pros and its cons. Obviously.
Sorry, Chris. It just in terms of from a customer's point of view, you work as a sommelier in fine dining. If you, let's say, because we talked about the view of screw cap and the view of cork a little bit, if you take out a bottle which is a very fine wine in a screw cap closure, obviously, first of all, what do you do without your corkscrew? You don't do the nice looking opening.
Yeah, this.
How customers actually look at the bottle when
it's an interesting topic, because years ago when I worked in a 2 Michelin star in London, what I did on the wine list, actually every wine that were on the screw cap, I put it on the wine list. Yeah, it was SC between commas, but because I just didn't want to have any issues with, because I've had some guests where they order something, I bought the bottle, they say, oh, screw cap, now I don't want it. It happened.
That's quite interesting, actually, because you would think, especially when you go to a Michelin star restaurant, you wouldn't expect less of a quality, regardless whether it's on the screw cap or in cork. You would think we are in a Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah, it's going to be something European way of thinking as well. But I remember colleagues of mine that were working at the Dorchester at the time, the Dorchester Hotel in London, and then basically they refused to have any screw cap on their wine list coming through their doors. It's just simply as that. Even though if the wine is staggering, and that's what you have. If you order on Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, which is demanded by your guest, you're not going to find anything on the cork, or very limited and probably high, very very high quality, with probably something that have been put through oak and therefore needs more time to evolve. So this is now a kind of a format into the market. It's really that freshness, that style, that is almost driving the screw cap. It's almost the screw cap drive the wine profile as such. Yeah. But then the beautiful aspect of human engineering is that we carried on, looking for options. So again, when the screw cap happened, also plastic cork came through, and I think that's probably the worst thing that could have happened. Some trial have been made. I remember Rhonda Graham. So Rhonda Graham is the mind behind a winery called Bonnie Doon in Santa Cruz in California. So what they call them Gold Rangers, so because of Grenache and Syrah and Mourvèdre and Viognier, and obviously he had a Zinfandel called a Cardinal Zin, which was actually fantastic word of play, and he bottled everything under plastic corks, and these corks were actually really good quality, but he changed his mind very very quickly because the wines didn't hold very very well, and the vision of plastic even then was also quite bad. Yeah. Then the Vinolok was invented. So Vinolok is basically a glass. Glass knocking, so it fits perfectly. There's a little bit of a rubber, and then basically it fits perfectly on the bottle. It's quite easy to open, and funnily enough, it's actually an Austrian invention, the Vinolok, and there's a lot of wine from Austria, and especially the sweet ones that are locked into Vinolok, but you don't really see it a lot because it's very fragile and obviously quite expensive, but it's a very good closure. And we don't really have the time spectrum as to see if the wines are evolving in the right direction and how they are evolving, but still it's a very good closure.
I was going to ask about the element of aging wine on the Vinolok. Obviously we don't have the actual data to analyze these things just yet enough, because it's a fairly recent invention. But do you have any experience with any of these wines which were under?
I do, but again, on rather young vintages, not much evolution. As I said, it's a beautiful and quite classic and easy closure to operate with. But in terms of what really is the interaction with the product, I cannot go any further because I haven't seen it. I really don't know. I really don't know.
When I first saw it years ago, I almost thought it was a marketing gimmick, but it actually works very nicely. So you can actually close it back, and it seals perfectly from the start.
That's also why it's very much fitted on sweet wines, because the sweet wines aspect of having a glass or maybe two glasses, and then you keep it for a couple of days, and then you drink another glass, because obviously it says on sweet wines it's a bit slower, unless you're a large table, blah blah blah. So this was the invention of actually the ability exactly to lock it back perfectly, put it back in the fridge, and then wait for it another couple of days before Coravin was invented, before all those tools, yes, exactly, were on the markets. So that's why you still see it, but it's actually quite disappearing. And then a company came up about 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, called Diams. So Diams is a Cork company, and then basically their approach is they buy all Cork possible, then they dice it in very, very small pieces. So that basically eradicates all the issues, because they control basically the quality of the cork and what they buy through analysis. And then they create cork with, so they glue it together with a flour glue, which has absolutely no flavors, no profile. And completely safe. And then they create those. So now we are on Diam's, I think it's 5 or 6, and I know a few winemakers that swear only Viadu's Cork nowadays, because of the quality, because of the service, because of the quantities available, because of the pricing, they wouldn't go anywhere else. And you see more and more Diams in the world, because they are really, really good cork. And on the other side of the spectrum, as a sommelier, they're also very strong corks, because they're never really that long. They're actually just perfect sizes. Therefore, to break a Diam, you really have to want to do so. So that's also help on the final touch when you are in front of your guests trying to open that bottle of wines, and it's a Diam, and that you have 95 pounds, 97 pounds chance, I would say, to get it right. So that looks good, and that is very, very that looks good. That's very professional, and also an achievement in terms, especially in terms of the speed, because they come quite easily. I mean, how many times it happens when you have a very old cork, and either it doesn't come, it's completely stuck, or it breaks in the middle, right.
What's the most interesting to me is that the cork industry is focused on Portugal, obviously, and then the most cork which goes wrong in a bottle quite often is in port bottles, which is obviously from Portugal, but that obviously comes from aging. Yes,
exactly, aging, sugar, alcohol. Because that's also an aspect that you don't really think of, but obviously port being super alcoholic and super sweet, that damages the cork usually a bit more. And also ports, wood, I mean, the tradition, the British tradition is to drink port with like 50, 60, 70 years. So obviously then a cork at 70 years is a bit like us at 70 years. You're a bit more reluctant to do.
I don't know. I'm not 70 yet. You talk about
No, I'm not there yet. I'm not there. I've got a few decades to go, but still, you could understand that. But that's why there's that beautiful technique for all cork, where you don't touch the cork. You put a piece of metal, a round piece of metal, through intense heat, and then you sit it at the bottom of the neck, and then after that you spray a little bit of water and click. It breaks perfectly, and then you remove that, and then you decant it from.
Do you have to do that in restaurants often?
When you run a 2 Michelin star, you run a 2 Michelin star. We mean basically the service doesn't allow you to do those kind of things. You know, it's the beauty part of what sommelier can do and would do or whatever if you got, you know, a big team and and a bit more time. But no, you don't really do that. That's very much for the video as such nowadays.
So that's
you need to know how it works and what. I beg your pardon.
That's more for social media in that case.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly that idea. You know, but it's important to know why, how to do it, and what's the historic behind it. And it's actually quite a beautiful show. You know, it's just and it works. It really does.
It is a little bit time consuming, and I can see that when you have a few.
You need the tools as well, and so on and so forth. Yeah, you need the space and so on. So it is it is quite complicated to make happen. But it's a good demonstration. No, I agree. I would very agree.
And in terms of the future of Cork, the future of screw cap, because that's probably the two main direction what we're seeing. What do you think is going to be? Can you see first growth claret put on the screw cap, even if it's the luxury version of screw cap? In the near future, or is that going to be something which is going to be very difficult?
I mean, the
achieve.
The talk with Bordeaux and the conversation with Bordeaux is actually quite interesting because, I mean, Bordeaux is one of those regions that, you know, is struggling. You don't think so because you're thinking, well, Bordeaux, I can see the price and the quality and also the representation worldwide. You know, Bordeaux has this stature of almost, you know, the top of the pyramid when it comes to winemaking and stature and so on and so forth. But actually, if you think about it, the way I structure it is 1855 is the classification of Bordeaux for Napoleon and the international show in Paris. But in 1855, it's 85 wines that have been classified: dry, red, and sweet wines. That's why Sauternes is classified and not Pomerol, for example. Out of those 85 remaining today, how many actually sells? 50?
Yeah.
There is 3,560 chateaus in Bordeaux, established address of bottling.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that Bordeaux is not struggling when 50 chateaus are selling and the rest is not. So you know, so first growth, no, I don't think it's going to ever happen. No. Even if there is a lack of production of Cork within the next, you know, 50 years, they will always find a way to have Cork, like the top domain anywhere in the world. They will always manage to get something. But the rest of the world and the world production might have to find a new direction. And I think screw cap will definitely take more and more market. But I think, again, as I said earlier, I think the stabilization now, there's quite a good balance between the one side of the market with screw cap, and that's exactly what it is for, and you know, fantastic, and that works well, and that's fantastic, and that's marketing as well as quality driven direction, and then that gives us the top of the layers where it's nothing to be snobbish about. It's just it's a known product. We have the history, we have the data, as you said, and there is a lot of, you know, as human, we are creature of habit, you know, and for us having that gesture, you know, that opening that bottle of wine via a cork is just part of the beauty of sharing a bottle of wine. Yeah. So I don't see the end of Cork closure.
Yes, I was going to say it's not much of the it's not much of the demand, well, or the struggles with Cork generally. And as you said, first growth clarets and very premium wines will always aim for that sort of closure. It's more of a mindset from the consumers, whether they accept that very fine wines can be bottled and kept in good quality.
Yeah, and I'll show you
the screw
something.
cup as well, and then
I'll show you something. There's also another aspect of this conversation is this.
The bottle opener.
Yeah. So it's a big market. I mean, this one has been gifted to me, but it's called Code 38. It's Australian made. It's titanium, so super light, super solid. That's £400 too.
Yeah.
So you know,
in that case, I just show the perfect seller version, which is nice.
So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, there is definitely, yeah, exactly, but that there is also this aspect of the market that, you know, there is also demand for very good bottle opener, not just as looking good, but also the perfectionist aspect of what, you know, the tools you use. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for a few years. I've had many of what you've had in your hands. This is really something, you know, extraordinary and rare. But the quality of this thing is absolutely outstanding. It's outstanding. And more importantly, you never really think about it. But funnily enough, is actually not really the pigtail the most important thing. The most important thing is in my side is actually the knife.
Yes, I quite often realize that when you try to nicely open a bottle of wine.
Because exactly that will basically give you that edge in terms of speed, and also the beautiful, you know, ring opened perfectly, speedy, precisely. Because there's nothing worse than having to go through, you know, a beautiful foil and destroy and, you know, rip everything off and so on and so forth.
I caravan this bottle previously. As you can see, it's a fairly decent job actually, but you need to be quite careful how you do it when you're using the bottle opener.
Exactly.
From an average customer point of view, they will not think too much about the corkscrew version, what corkscrew they're using. They, in that sense, I think screw cap should be winning, because all you do is just.
But that's exactly also, I think it's a generation thing as well, as because, I mean, still working in the restaurant industry nowadays, you know, at different layers, but what you realize is the sort of new generation, they don't really, you need to teach them how to open a bottle of wine. You really need to teach them, and some of them, you know, struggle. And I'm not even talking about champagne. I'm talking sparkling wine in general. You know, as control the gas and so on and so forth, and the pressure. But even opening a bottle of wine can be a challenge. Whereas they see screw cap as being, you know, the best thing on the planet, because it's just a twist and that's it. It's done. Is, you know, game over. So it's very interesting as, you know, demographic goes on. What will be also the intake of such closure, because they just look at like, oh wow, what am I doing with that bottle of wine, and what am I doing with these things? What is this? You know, how do you open it? How do you operate it? So yeah, food for thought, let's say.
I think that we can establish that this is going to be a generational thing, because or a generational change rather, because I think as we go forward, it's obviously gonna go towards the screw cap, but it's probably gonna be a slow process how things change, and then some big chateaus, some big domains, they all still keep the cork just to maintain their.
No, when you see the generation sort of drinking pattern, you know, I follow kind of interesting data throughout Europe of drinking patterns. People drink less and less and less and less.
Yeah.
So it's also a matter of being healthy and blah blah, vegetarian, vegan, and blah blah. But also, I think it's to do with the fact that, you know, younger generation tends to be a bit more. If they drink, will be more spirits, or at least right now, maybe a few beers as well. But wine has always struggle when it comes to generation changes, because of what it represents, not as a drink, but as a culture. You know, what am I drinking? What's the difference between a Cabernet Sauvignon and a Merlot? Why do I like this Rioja rather than a Tuscany, you know, red wine? Where is Tuscany? Because there is also, you know, a sort of culture. I'm not saying that people are not cultivated. I'm just saying that you need to go through a process of understanding few points as to understand what you like and why you like it and that sort of thing. I think it comes a bit later in journey or via education, unless you've got parents that educated you on wine or your grandfather or whatever. But it's not something that is coming, you know, via education, school education. So you know, vodka is vodka, you know, whiskey is whiskey, and gin is gin. You don't really need to go further than that. You know, it's a drink. And more importantly, it's a brand. So let's see how things are developing. But I think, yeah, generation wise, I think the one is not in I mean, the reality is one is not in large supply. It is, but it's not. When you've read the last production, like 2021 in France, for example, was the smallest harvest since 1945. That's a staggering amount of wine. Yet still, you know, a lot of bottles, but compared to the demand, it's nothing. I mean, you know, if anyone seeing this video is a Burgundy lover, and they know exactly what I'm talking about. When, you know, guys, they are usually, you know, 10 or 15 barrels of one wine. Last year, or 2021 exactly, they had like 3. I know, and that's been, you know, in a row since 1999, basically. Burgundy has never seen a full cellar, you know, of staggering quality, fantastic quality and quantity. So you know, it's one of those things that actually there is a lot of wine, but it's not actually that much. So perspective of drinking, yes, you will see wines always on table, especially associated with restaurant, I believe. Home, I don't really know if people will still drink wine at home, you know, in 30 years. Also because, you know, I mean, you know, European, as we all know, they are sort of slow to change. You know, we have always done it like this, and it's not going to change. You know, it's not a sort of market that is embracing changing quite easily. It's rather the opposite. Okay, let's see how things are evolving before we change our way of producing or marketing it. So on that matter, I think that will give us a bit more kind of, you know, time to analysis. But otherwise, I think that, you know, wine consumption in general, especially given nowadays the price tags, because, you know, lately we all know, inflation and so on and so forth, and just shortage. You know, cardboard took 25%, cork took 20%, glass, we don't even talk about it, and obviously the lack of fruit. So you know, you struggle. So it's very interesting to see how at the moment, you know, suppliers, importers are reviewing their pricing, and then you see, you know, 10, 12, 15, 17% increase on one bottle of wine, 17% increase. So you know,
we have to get ready for more good quality wines being a little bit more expensive. But at the end of the day, I think we diverted a little bit from
no, but it comes back to the same point. I think it's the fact that, you know, closure, and especially cork closure on that expensive bottle of wine, will always make sense to people. Obviously, paying £8, £10 for wine under screw cap, it almost doesn't hurt you. You're thinking, okay, that's fine. That's I mean, even though £10 is a lot of money, but you're thinking, I know the wine is some good quality. But then as soon as you move the 15 or the 18 or £20 mark, then that's when you almost expect a cork. No, again. So I think this is that sort of layering where you'll have always that sort of difference in the sort of production, marketing, and even consumer point of view and attraction. You know, to a certain price point is cool cap. Above that, it's and nothing to do where it comes from. nothing to do where it comes from. On that stake, I think Europe have also moved quite on, as I said, for even the entry level wines, in Italy or in Spain or even back home, you see those wines being under screw cap because they realize screw cap is an amazing closure, because it's an amazing closure. Don't get me wrong, it's an amazing closure, and I'm not talking about the easiness of it. I'm talking about the ability to retain that freshness. If you got the chance, and I've done it, to have two wines same age, one under screw cap, one under cork, they're not the same wine.
The freshness will still remain in the screw cap, obviously. Precisely.
You've got much more singing element of the screw cap closure than with the cork, because of that organic aspect that sort of tend to swallow a little bit of that freshness. You need to work your wine a bit more, whereas the screw cap is kind of open it, and then the wine will sing naturally.
Well, Christopher, thank you very much for this discussion. I think it's very interesting to see what's going to happen, what happened in the closure world of wine. As you can see, there's lots of things what we have to think about when you can open a bottle like this, but that's probably a different subject for a different day. But hopefully, yes, you stick to that.
I don't. I believe that for me, the social aspect of wine is, you have a couple of friends at home, you open a bottle or two or three or six or whatever, but you open it. You drink it, you don't drink it, you don't drink it, but you open it.
But we'll discuss this later on a different video. And we're probably going to have a very interesting project coming up at Perfect Cellar soon, which I don't know if you heard about or not, but I'm not going to give out anything yet, but there's going to be,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, different things coming in our way, which is going to be quite interesting. But anyway, thank you very much, Chris, for this. And
thanks very much, guys. See you soon. Speak very soon. All the best, and have a lovely day and a lovely week, and see you on that Zoom call once more soon, hopefully.
Yes.